But today is the day I finally can talk about PLV. So we're going to just go straight into this. Once again, thank you all so much for being here. Enjoy the next 4 days. Tell us what you think on Twitter. If you have any problems with it, we fixed a lot of the contribution stuff. And remember, 100% is all to ALS. Let's make that goal a reality of $10,000 raised for an awesome cause. And we all know someone who has been affected by it. So I hope that you can help support the cause and enjoy 40 hours. All right. So, oh boy. I am very excited, and I can't believe we're going to do this, but yeah, here we are. Let's talk about PLV. So, this is my presentation today. It is 2 hours, and this is a big moment for me. So, let's get to it. Welcome to the presentation for PLV. Introducing PLV. It's pitch level value, and it's a new way to analyze players. So let's get to it. Before we begin, I want to thank everybody who made this possible over 3.5 years. Yes, we've been working on this for 3.5 years. It came as a small idea when we saw an opportunity to pursue something like this, and we have tirelessly worked to make this happen. So, Colin Charles, Kyle Bland, Jeff Nicholas, Cameron Grove, Zach Dobroff, David Fanko, Richard Zhang, Ike Wade, Niv Shaw, Brandon Lundberg, Alex Fast, many others as well. But all of you have had your hand in this in some fashion. Really, thank you for this today. Even though some people here aren't even with the staff anymore, some just came and went. But everyone understood the cool thing that we were creating and wanted to help out with it. So thank you all for really so much for this. And Colin, really, if you don't know Colin, he's behind the scenes, been here for maybe 4 or 5 years. And this is very much his baby as well. So I want to give him full appreciation for this. All right. So step 1, what is the goal? How did this start? Well, let's talk about it. So hi, I'm Nick Pollock. I'm a former college pitcher and travel coach. I started Pitcher List back in 2014 when it was Pitcher Gifts. The goal of that was to visualize pitches. I wanted a GIF of every single pitcher so you can see more than just a spreadsheet of just overall performance, right? And then that turned into analyzing pitches on the granular level, which I believe is better than the overall stats. If you understand the repertoire, you will grasp the player better than just their ERA overall, right? This is who I am. This is my whole thing. Then I learned about Pitch FX and TrackMan and Hawkeye, and that stuff is incredible. From there, I created CSW back in 2017. That helped us get the bridge of grasping the skill set of the pitches themselves, translating to the actual results. But there's a lot more to it. And our current metrics do not tell the whole story here about pitching ability. And that's kind of where this whole thing started. But to really nail this down, bear with me, okay? We got to do this. So we're going to do this. Let's talk about baseball stats as a whole. This is an oversimplification of baseball stats, all right? So around 1900, you had like your game level stats, okay? And those are your basic ones. You have your team runs, you have your team errors, you have your team hits, right? At the end of the day. Okay, you have all, etc. Spooky McGee had a complete game. Fine. All right. Then you have around 1980, probably more like 1950, 1960, but popularized by Bill James and Sabermetrics. You have your plate appearance level stats, okay? So you have the stuff by Bill James. You have like whip, you have strikeouts per 9, you have slugging, you have ground balls. Essentially anything that can be defined as the event, how the plate appearance ended, is present here inside of Sabermetrics. It was a huge thing, right? So think about it. You're going from the game level and you're saying, hey, look, games are comprised of plate appearances. And by the way, those plate appearances are comprised of a moment of contact, right? And these are really got popularized in 2005, but then 2015 with StatCast. But that's the stuff like exit velocity and launch angle and spray direction, right? barrel percentage, etc. That kind of stuff, looking at the contact itself. Okay. So there we are. We have like the game level stuff. We have we're saying, look, games are comprised of plate appearances, they're comprised of contact. But nowadays, we realize that, well, if at bats are comprised of pitches, we might actually be able to tell a better story as we continue to get more and more and understand more. Okay. So pitch level stats would include like velocity and movement and release point, location. You could say spin axis, I don't know, millions of other things I'm just forgetting right now, extension, and so on and so forth, right? So just a quick review. We've gone from that game level now all the way to the pitch level. We're analyzing pitches themselves, and that is better information. And clearly, pitch quantifiers are an important thing, right? We got to understand the quality of those pitches to do that. So we should probably talk more about pitch quantifiers. Okay. So step 3, pitch quantifiers. What do we have now? What is the world of pitch quantifiers? So we have the basic ones, which are pitch info and pitch and p-val. Okay. So p-val really came first with pitch fx, then pitch info, baseball info solutions had pitch info. RAA was StatCast. And by the way, I tried to do a lot more research about pitch quantifiers. I could be slightly wrong on this, and please correct me here. I want to really make sure that's a point of, I believe I got these right. But of course, there's Pitching Plus, Enosaurus, and Max Bay. Great stuff there. And of course, Pitching Bot with Cameron Grove. And these are just the major ones. There is another I think a lot of you are thinking of. I refuse to acknowledge it. Refuse. And you all know why. Okay. So let's talk about for a second why it's important to talk about pitch quantifiers in a context of a baseball event. Okay. So first thing that happens, a pitch is thrown, right? The pitcher throws the ball. The hitter does something. Is there contact or is there not? And then you have an event. Okay. And so what metrics do we have at these points? So again, talking about the stuff from before, you have the velocity, location, movement from the pitch thrown. You have the launch angle, the exit velocity, and spray direction, no contact being made, or maybe that could or not at the contact point. And then the event is actually what happened based on that contact, right? Or lack thereof. Okay. Now, if we look back at those pitch quantifiers, and by the way, hitter does something, we got nothing for that right now. There's nothing. Maybe we'll talk about that later. Pitch quantifiers, how do they do it? Well, on the event level, you have p-val, pitch info, and runs above average. On the pitch thrown side, you have Pitching Plus and Pitching Bot. So, and then you have also this. Now, I want to go over these really quickly. So, p-val, pitch info, and runs above average. I actually thought that runs above average for a while with StatCast was actually XRAA. That is looking at the contact and then assessing it, right? But instead, it's actually just doing outs above average, from my understanding. I researched this for a while. I was really kind of like, really wanted to get down to it. And this is my established answer is, yeah, outs above average is just saying based on everything that happened in the field, we're going to assign the run value differentiation from it. Pretty much a p-val and pitch info, we're doing just a better version of it. However, this is the event talking about the pitch thrown. And we've got other things in the way here. You can't look at this and just say it's this. This whole timeline is messed up, right? That doesn't seem right to me. I kind of want to see an XRAA. I feel like that makes a lot of sense, but I don't think that exists. Whatever. We'll talk about that more. And then you have, of course, these Pitching Plus and Pitching Bot. They do not look at these. They do not look at the hitter doing something to contact the event. They just actually look at the qualities of the pitch thrown and give an assessment to it. That's why I like them a lot more. So and of course, we don't have anything at hitter does something. That's kind of a weird way to look at it, but theoretically that should be better than the event itself because it's closer to the actual pitch thrown, which is a pitch quantifier, and of course then there's PLV, and PLV, surprise, surprise, it's a pitch quantifier, guys. And we're going to get more into this. So creating PLV, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create another pitch quantifier. Okay. So how did we get here? And this is actually really fun. So indulge me for a moment. As I wonder how fast I'm going through this. I never timed it. All right. And baseball. Oh, a baseball event. I messed that up. Sorry, Flibbity. We got to keep going here. So why did I start making it, right? We have these other pitch quantifiers. Okay. Because p-val annoyed me. All right. This bothered me immensely. And pretty much is what I was talking about before. So you have pitch A and you have pitch B. Okay. Pitch A is a groove teeter down the middle with the bases loaded, results in a deep fly out to center, and it's a positive p-val, right? Think of it 2 outs as well. That's a good outcome, right? Because he got the fly out, even though it was a groove teeter right down the middle. And because it's also the bases loaded, it's going to assign a higher one because of the run differential of it, right? However, if you throw the perfect changeup down and away out of the zone, I'm thinking legitimately Chris Sale changeup to Mike Trout in a 3-2 count. That was the most beautiful pitch ever. And I do not understand how Mike Trout hit it for a home run. That had a gigantic negative p-val. But what we have here is a perfect changeup and a grooved heater. And this is not a pitch quantifier. It's an event quantifier. Ah! It's not a pitch quantifier. You can't assign it to the pitch. You're assigning it to the event. It bothers me. Sorry. I got off track. All right. For real this time. Okay. How did we get here? Creating PLV. So this is how this happened. All right. It was 2019. We're trying to figure out how do we quantify pitches. We had some ideas for it, but we didn't really have a concrete way of approaching the question of how do we really truncate all this stuff into one number, right? How do we really answer that question? So, I was in quarantine. I would go to my roof and I would pace. That's how I did it in quarantine. That's how I got outside in like March of 2020 and April of 2020. I would just pace outside and no one would be up there. It would be gorgeous. I could just spend the day on the roof of my apartment building. And I eventually came up with something I called the golden formula. Spoiler alert. It wasn't the golden formula. Okay. But this is what it was. This was the first real step towards something of trying to really grasp how to make a good pitch quantifier. And this looks confusing as heck, right? And yes, heck. And I'm just going to give you a moment as I sip some coffee to really try to look at this and understand it before I tell you what it is. All right. So PLV in my head was the expected CSW plus the expected foul percentage. And that is essentially analyzing the likelihood of a good thing if there is no contact. Okay. So if you notice that ball percentage isn't a part of that, essentially, when it comes to the outcomes, actually, Ariel Cohen had a whole thing, a WPDI, which is looking at all the 6 outcomes of a pitch. If there's contact, foul, in play, out, no contact, was there swing, that kind of stuff, right? So we're taking really the things that have no contact or ball in play, I should say. It's called strikes, swing strikes, foul ball, and removing balls there because essentially this is plus balls equals no contact. Excuse me. So those are the positive ones. And then we're going to subtract it by this stuff. And this is essentially my way of assessing, is this a good thing that the ball is in play? So what I wanted to do was have on one side, if the ball is in a play, does it benefit the pitcher? And when the ball is in play, does it benefit the pitcher? Because a lot of times, I think an element that we forget about is there are some pitchers that are really good at getting outs. Why does Sandy Alcantara and Zach Wheeler, why do they both have sub 30% CSWs? Because they get outs. They get these grounders from sinkers inside, these weak contact hit balls in play that are beneficial to them. And I really felt with PLV that we had to reward that. Yes, I have CSW. That was a part of it that I feel like we were just so obsessed with strikeouts and swing strike rate that we were forgetting about the side of like, no, it's really, really good to get these foul balls in 0-1 counts. Those are huge. And I wanted a way to do that. So what I have here is expected ball and play percentage. And then I have a PLV constant. And essentially that's because the first half on the left is to over 100%. But then on the right, you have expected with bacon, and that isn't on that scale. So essentially, the PLV constant is a way to bring the stuff on the far right down into the 100% scale. And then you have the expected will bacon of that ball in play subtracted by the point at which we believe it is beneficial or not for the ball to be in play. So let me say it like this. If it's if the threshold were at 100, we would say that at 120, we think it's a bad thing for the pitcher that the ball is in play. That's not the case. I think we actually were trying things around like 300 as an expo bacon. If it's underneath that, then the pitcher wants it to be in play. So by creating it like this and by having that negative, it essentially, if you put them on even weight on scales, you're able to combine the two into something that says this pitch is going to have a good outcome or a bad outcome for the pitcher. That was the idea. All right. This is this is the concept of this. I think in essence, we actually still have showcases of this formula, but I still think in my heart that the idea of this, the formatting of this, is a really good way of just in general thinking about pitches. Okay. So that was a lot of time on that one. But so here are some early ideas. And this is all thanks to Colin Charles. Colin was was the guy that really tackled this with me at first. A lot of other people I mentioned before. But I cannot express enough my gratitude to Colin over the years, and I hope he's watching and is as proud of this outcome that we have today as I am, because really the amount of things that we've exchanged back and forth. He sent me this whole document of things that he's done. I've tried to incorporate some of them. I didn't want to bog you guys down with stuff, but this is the magic carpet that we called it, which is essentially saying locations of pitches and generally where you want to throw them. And by the way, one of the biggest findings we had along our path to PLV is that if you really want to take one stat of a pitch, it's center distance. That is, the farther away it is from the middle of the zone, the better the pitch will be. And that's how we're highlighting this. As you can see, the corners are good and how bad it is in the middle. But it's just a very basic, like, center distance, radii from there. But really, center distance is like the biggest thing. And here's some more just little charts of this, different PLVs from in using counts, and showcasing different players and stuff and where they located and what were the good ones, the bad ones, that kind of stuff. This is also really fun. We have Colin shared with me the different scenarios. So he's like, okay, you know what? We have that formula. We got to add some weights to it now, right? So we have swing strike rate and called strike rate. They have the same weight. Then we got to 3. And by the way, we're skipping here. So then we've got it in just in favor of swing strike rate a little bit. Okay, now we have increased it in this. Do that. Oh man, this just oh boy, it keeps going. And then eventually, I really want to hand this to Colin here. This is a scenario we got to, which is pretty cool. And this felt good, but really hard to get those weights right. I mean, a very, very difficult thing. So I want to thank Colin Charles for sending those to me. This is a very difficult thing. And we also did some other stuff. This was me versus the team's different models. So at this point, we had Jeff Nicholas making a model, Richard Zhang, Zach Dobroff, and Colin, of course, as well. And we have all of their values over here. This is a whole game of somebody throwing it. By the way, I don't know if you guys can guess based on the pitch types. This was against against Atlanta. Who this pitcher is. If someone can put it in chat, I'll be so impressed who you think this game was. You might have caught me in 2021 live streaming as I watched games and had to grade them. It was just to get discrepancies. In no way does PLV incorporate my actual values. Okay, there's no eye test grading going on. It's just so that we have the model spit out some stuff, and then I look at it independently, and we come back and say, why was this one completely different? How can it not be Nola? It is not Freddie Peralta. It is not Nola. It is a pitcher on the Marlins. Anyway, we're going to move on here. So we have some more random charts. We've got some PLV grading. And by the way, we did it back then on a -3 to 3 scale. It's Pablo Lopez. Good job, Sparks and BG. We have Tyler Glasnow. You can kind of see that Zach Plesac really bad over the plate, but Tyler Glasnow kind of doesn't matter. That's what we liked about it. This was a really fun idea. This was Richard Zhang's work, where we essentially wanted to create what if it was a 2D plane, because we weren't really taking in spray direction. And we're trying to really establish how we felt about grading balls in play. So we created 2D baseball, and this is the expected WOBAs based on just exit velocity and launch angle. And pretty much, I think this is just exit velocity at this point, actually. And as you can see, you have the spike over here, which is, this is by WOBA over here. I believe this is just, this is expected distance based on exit velocity and launch angle. So you have this little spike, which is your flares, and then it goes up all the way over here. And then you have some weird ones because very small sample at this point. Really fun stuff. And this is what I call the time machine. We had a moment where we were creating, we realized we need to do some, we need to do some machine learning prediction algorithms to get those percentages, those expected events. And one of them spat out something that was too good to be true. And if you look at this right now, literally, it says that 99.9% of the time it correctly predicted when a foul ball was going to hit, which there is no way. There is no way. But the thing is, we couldn't find what was wrong. And there was a good couple weeks where I knew that was a crazy person. I was expecting, I know this is a time machine. This shouldn't work. This shouldn't actually be a thing. We actually had met with a front office at one point to talk to their data team, be like, guys, please help us, because we think we found the greatest thing ever, but we need somebody to tell us why this isn't real. And we couldn't. And eventually we decided just to kind of shelve it, because we know we couldn't put this out. We just couldn't. We just couldn't put this out. Maybe we'll return to it at some point and figure it out. But that was a crazy moment for us. But all right, then I reached out to pitching bot Cameron Grove, and I can't thank Cameron enough, really. I saw his stuff with that XXX FIP. I thought it was brilliant. I saw what he was starting to do with pitching bot. He worked with us for a couple months, and he really helped us solidify really turning the predictions into an actual value that we can do. So here's some fun things. This was a mistake that we had early on, but this is kind of the fun conversations we would have, where he's showing, for example, how PLV, if you notice over here, really liked 3-0 counts a bit too much, where it was awarding a lot of these as 2.5s because those would just be called strikes, while not in any situation in 3-2 counts. And that's not right. And look, 0-2 pitches, you just can't do it, right? So these were part of the things where, along the way, we realized that there were some issues, which I'm sorry, Cameron, I don't have as many positive ones. You did a lot of positive ones, but this is a really cool one, good positive one, showcasing beautifully, as he does, a modified PLV based on more count stuff, weighting. And then here is this first one's 0-0, and then it's 0-2 sliders as well. This is, by the way, Kyle Bland will tell you in a moment. Yeah, that is, you don't want to do that. Swing decision is super high. But anyway, we're going to move on. So we finally got it finalized. We have the 1.0 version of PLV. What happened is Cameron did some amazing work, led into 2022. And we were still working on it. Colin Charles was hard at work at Jeff Nicholas. And then we brought on Kyle Bland, and we're going to get to him in a second, but just a quick recap here. So what is PLV? It's a pitch level value. It's similar to Pitching Bot and Pitching Plus models. It uses a machine learning algorithm to predict the likelihood of events, and then it takes into account dozens of variables, including count and batter and pitcher handedness, but it ignores situational context. So runners on base, the score, the outs of an inning, stuff like that. It does not separate between stuff and location. Okay, we put it as one thing because we want to only understand, was this a good or a bad pitch? That is the core of PLV. We want to answer the question, what is a good pitch and what is a bad pitch? And then we decided, you originally did it -3 to 3, but we wanted to give you a scale that you felt best about, that you could quickly grasp. Oh, that was a 9 pitch. Oh, that was a 2. And it's a 0 to 10 scale, is what we assigned at the end of the day. PLV itself is just the average, while we also have total that adds up all of them through the year. It's a giant number, but we kind of feel that's okay. And to talk about that more, I want to welcome Kyle Bland, the Director of Research and Analytics here at PitchList, joined the team in June. And Kyle, welcome. Thanks for joining today. We're doing
What's up, y'all? We did it.
We're here. So Kyle, if you want to share, do the present thing at the bottom, so that you can bring up your presentation. But yeah, Kyle Bland reached out in really in June of 2022. Tweeted at me some of his stuff, Blandlytics, that you guys probably know now on Twitter. I saw it and instantly was enamored, and feel so lucky to have Kyle here to finalize this. So yeah, Kyle, if you do it, there we go. We'll get this on stream and take it away, Kyle.
Well, hey everybody, how's it going? First thing I'd like to do is give a shout out to my wife. We just had a newborn baby girl over the weekend. She was supposed to be ready in time for PL8 in early February, but decided that she just had to see PitchCon. So she's here with us now and sleeping. She's doing great. All right. Now, let's move on to PLV, pitch level value. So, yeah, I was doing some work on this on my own, reached out to Nick. We started getting a good dialogue going, and he brought me on to kind of bring this project home. As he said, so many other awesome people really contributed to this, either in major or minor ways, like influenced me. And so I really appreciate everyone at PitchList that's helped with this work and everyone who has their own public models out. It's awesome that so many people are doing such cool work, and we can kind of look at it, do things our own way, and work with that. Awesome. So let's get going. Sweet. PLV. How good were those pitches? And you'll have to excuse me. I was planning on doing these slides earlier, finalizing these slides earlier this week, but a newborn does not help with that. Sweet. How do we measure a pitch? So we have data on pitches for 2020 to 2022, and we broke those up into 3 feature groups. So this is like how I think of what these individual features specify. So we have our stuff features. So that's your speed, your movement, horizontal, vertical, and combined. And then for all of those, we also took the difference from their fastball or their primary pitch for that appearance, so that we can kind of get a little bit of an idea of, that's a proxy for a little bit of how much change can a batter kind of expect from the most likely pitch to maybe like this off speed or this slider. And then we also had height adjusted vertical approach angle, which shout out to Alex Chamberlain for his work on that. I think he talked about it last year and then did a write-up on Fangraphs about it. And the height adjusted, if you can see down in the corner, as he abbreviated VAAA, and then I just threw a couple, maybe like above Aaron Ashby's average, like throw a couple more A's in there. Awesome. So that's our stuff features. Now we have our location features. Where'd the pitch end up? Horizontally, vertically, and then something that we added, and I'm not sure quite what goes into everybody else's model, but I like that we have this. Vertical location relative to each hitter's strike zone. And I'll get into that in just a second. And then last but not least, we have our categorical. What hand does the pitcher throw with? What hand does the batter hit with? What group are these pitches in, and the pitch types in? And I'll get to that in a second too. And then also, very importantly, what is the count? The count really impacts A, how valuable the pitch is, and B, the tendencies of batters. One of the biggest features actually for called strikes was, are there 0 strikes? If there's 0 strikes, batters swing less. And so that's very important information to know, and that the pitcher will know prior to throwing that pitch. Sweet. So now let's get into our vertical location relative to a hitter's strike zone. So I love this. This is my favorite. We have Jose Altuve on the left and Aaron Judge on the right. And as you can see, their strike zones are very different. And so if we just used the height of the pitch for Aaron Judge, that's like a whole half of a strike zone above Jose Altuve's. And so what's a strike to him is a ball to Altuve, and also vice versa. Altuve has a couple inches beneath Judge's. And so to account for this, we measured it in strike zones relative to the center. So basically find out like, okay, where's that midpoint vertically? And then half a strike zone up is to the top of the zone, half a strike zone down is to the bottom. And then if they go up further, if it's 0.6, 0.7, we know that it provides the model context that it's out of the strike zone above, out of the strike zone below for that particular batter. Sweet. And yeah, this is all by design. This is the MLB rule book. And I think it's awesome. I think it's fun to have nuance and context for each batter. I'm not here to make all batters and all strike zones the same. Yeah, it's great. All right, so here are our pitch groups. So we split them into three. So you have your primary, which is fastballs. So your four-seamer, your sinker, and then your cutter, if that's your most commonly used pitch. So, pitchers like Corbin Burns, like that's their bread and butter. That's what they're using. And so we kind of had to do a split because some pitchers use it differently than other pitchers. So he leads with that. Other pitchers use it as more of a breaking ball, of change of pace from their average fastball. So then we also have breaking balls, your sliders, curves and knuckle curves, kind of those are categorized together. And then, secondary cutters. So if they have a fastball that they throw more often, their cutter is going to go into this breaking ball group. And then last but not least, you have your off speed. So that's your changeups, that's your splitters. There are very, very few other pitch types. We have a couple screwballs that are classified. We have some knuckleballs. And then my personal favorite, just fastball general. And those are usually like your Brett Phillips deliveries, like a good 60-mile-per-hour fastball. Those are binned as other, and those are given kind of generic values. They're so rare. It's such a small sample, it was impossible to model. Sweet. All right, let's get into our modeling process. Now that we have all of our features, let's walk through what we're going to do with them. So for my idea and our idea for this model was, okay, let's go through the logic of an outcome for each pitch. And each pitch can end up in generally these outcomes. So I know errors and things like that aren't included, the much smaller niche cases. These are kind of your general outcomes that are going to be, 95, 98%, going to be the vast majority, going to have plenty of sample for us to actually extract some good predictions from. So we have our called strikes, balls, hit by pitch. So those are your three where the batter's not doing anything. Swinging strike, fouled strike. So those are your two where, all right, batter swung, he either hit it and couldn't hit it in play or swung and miss. And then finally, we have our balls in play. Field outs, so in play out, your singles, your doubles, triples, home runs. Those are all great. And I'll get into these are all of the outcomes, but how we get there is a little more complicated. Sweet. So basically, I used models at each step to predict the outcomes. So first off, did a batter swing or not? Yes or no? Pretty straightforward. If they didn't swing, was that pitch closer to being in the zone? That'll be a called strike. Is it out of the zone? Ball. Is it way out of the zone? Hit by pitch. And so we have each of those. We can check them. And so that's our take model. Now we have our swing result model. So basically, did they make contact? Again, binary, yes or no. If they didn't make contact, swinging strike. If they did, now we're moving on to, all right, they made contact. Do we think it's going to be a foul ball or is it going to be in play? This model, it's a little harder to kind of estimate that, especially since we're not incorporating spray angle when we train the models. So this is generally just an idea that, every so often foul balls happen. It's going to be more likely for some pitches, probably ones closer to the batter, further from the batter, that they're going to kind of spray one way or the other. Okay, now we have our in-play model. So to handle the balls in play, instead of trying to predict outs, singles, doubles, triples, because those can come in a variety of flavors. You can have your hard hit ground ball. You can have a bloop single over the infield. those are both singles, but they're vastly different in how you get there. So what I did, and shout out to, I think Cameron Grove breaks his model kind of down like this, of predicting the vertical angle, so like ground balls, fly balls, line drives, and then also predicting the velocity, the exit velocity of that pitch. So we broke it down to buckets of 10 degrees. So less than 10 degrees, those are your ground balls. And that's generally, like, I believe that's StatCast's description as well. Then 10 to 20, which is generally around your line drives. And then 20, 30, 30, 40, 40, 50, those are roughly your fly ball buckets. And then last and least is your 50 plus degrees. Those are your pop-ups. Those are your automatic outs. So for everything except pop-ups, because it doesn't really matter how hard you hit a pop-up, 99% of the time it's going to be an out. But for the other buckets, it's important to know, well, how hard did they hit? How hard do we expect that ball to be hit? Because that will affect, how likely a different outcome is for something, especially once you get into fly balls. Sometimes if they're weakly hit, yeah, that'll just pop over the infield. Great, that's a hit. If you hit a little harder, that's right to the fielder. And then if you hit it really hard, that's a home run. So those are like huge swings, just depending on the same bucket, the same launch angle, but how hard is that pitch expected to get hit? Cool. So now we have kind of our model tree for classifying, okay, where do we think these outcomes are? So this is kind of just, now that we have our predicted launch angles and predicted exit velocities, what we did was we took the average for that bucket. So the average for that combination of angle and velocity, and then we just gave it whatever the distribution of in play is: out, single, double, triple, home run. So examples provided. First off, less than 10 degree launch angle, less than 90 mile per hour exit velo. These are your weakly hit ground balls. They're an out 84% of the time. Sometimes they're singles. Very rarely are they going for base hits. And it's always good to see ground balls are not going for home runs. And then example B, so now we have our 30 to 40 degrees, so like a solid fly ball, not getting a little too high where there's going to be a lot of hang time, and then 105 miles an hour, so like super hard hit, scorched. And these are home runs 82% of the time. Doubles 12% of the time. Triples are very rare, but 1% is pretty high relative to all the other buckets. And only an out 5% of the time. That's probably going to be like for those hits that are kind of straight down center field, batter, like a catch at the wall. You'll probably see that on Sports Center. Great. This is our quick calibration plot. How often are our outcomes happening? These line up pretty well. The size of the dot is how frequent those predictions are. So bigger bubbles are, we predict this a lot more, and they're expected, or they are observed a lot more often. And smaller bubbles are very much rarer cases. And especially as you get to like those tiny little dots, which depending on your monitor, you may not even be able to see, those are maybe a handful, 1 or 2, 5 predictions out of the hundreds of thousands of pitches that we have. Everything lines up very well. I feel very good about these. And yeah, even the actual outcomes for the balls in play after we've modeled them as launch angle velo, and now they're the ball in play buckets, look pretty good, line up with expectations. Sweet. Now that we have our outcome predictions, now we need to value them. So we decided for this that we wanted to have a count-based model. And as we talked about before, count really influences batter decisions, and pitchers can also know that. And so it'll influence kind of what they do. So each count has its own WOBA expectation. And so ran through and did these based on plate appearances that saw this count. How did on average they finish? So what was their WOBA on average for plate appearances that saw this count? So 0-0 is your league average, 311 WOBA. That makes sense. As you get down to 2 strikes, 0 balls, you expect those to have under 0.2, because that's a lot of them are going to be strikeouts. A lot of batters are probably going to be trying to protect and just hit anything. And so you might get a lot of weak contact that way. And then on the other side, 3 balls, 0 count, 545 WOBA. It's probably going to be a walk. And if it's not a walk, batters have the green light to kind of wait until they see a pitch that they can really crush, and so they'll hit that. So now that we have our count expectation, we can do the outcome value. And so for that, we use the count as a baseline, and then what that outcome did is the difference between, or sorry, that outcome, the value of that outcome is now the difference between the end result and the count that it started in. So if you hit a double on a 2-strike count, that's going to be a lot more valuable than a double on a 3-0 count. Maybe not a lot more valuable is the way to describe it, but it will be more valuable because you were expected to do less with that 2-0 count, or sorry, that 0-2 count, and you're expected to do more with that 3-0 count. And now that we have kind of the change in value based on that pitch that was provided in that count, we convert that to runs. And so shout out Fangraphs. Your Wobus scale is a lifesaver for this, and your documentation on how to convert everything, really appreciated it. Great. Now that we have values for each predicted outcome, we combine them together. So have this nice formula here that I had to Google how to get in a nice format that I liked. But yeah, so given a season average runs per pitch are, and so that's across the league, every pitch thrown, how many runs were allowed, just the big general average. And so that's like our baseline pitch. And now we have N predicted outcomes. So those are the 10 that I talked about before: called strike, double, swinging strike, hit by pitch, all those. Each of those, now that we have our models, has a likelihood of P, and that's a percentage. We think a called strike will happen this often on this pitch. We think a double will happen this often on that same pitch. And each of those outcomes now has a value V. So each pitch is now that run value plus the sum of the likelihood of each outcome times the run value of that outcome. And we add that all together, we get our raw pitch value. If a pitch is expected to yield more runs than average, it's good for the batter. If a pitch is fewer, it's good for the pitcher. They're limiting runs. Batters want to add runs. Great. Now that we have our run value, we wanted to make it intuitive, kind of like an easy to grasp scale. So we decided we wanted to frame it around a 0 to 10 scale. And we wanted it to kind of reflect how valuable those are. Those 9 and 10 pitches are extremely valuable. Those 0 and 1s are extremely costly. And those 4 to 6 pitches, those are, in the middle, that they're moving through the count. Maybe you get a strike, maybe you get a ball, maybe you get a weak hit, that there's a little bit of a mix. So like I said, 10's a great pitch, likely to be a strike or an out, and especially in higher leverage counts where those strikes and outs are more valuable. They impact the count more. 5's league average, so it's always going to be, if they're not really adding or subtracting runs, that's going to be your 5. 0's a terrible pitch, so that's going to be a ball, definitely a hit by pitch. Those that are like way out of the strike zone, that's basically going to be a walk, hit by pitch every time. And then, or if you're grooving one down the middle, like Nick was talking about, that could be an extra base hit. And again, these are all in higher leverage counts where the pitcher's expected to like basically seal that plate appearance, that, 2-strike count, they're expected to kind of finish that. And then just as a disclaimer, there are some truly valuable pitches above 10 PLV, truly costly ones below. They're extremely rare, and if we're looking at this basically on like an appearance level, your month, your week, your day, and then season level, and even at a single appearance level where you have 80 to 100 pitches, those exceedingly rare values are going to kind of get washed out. Sweet. So now that we have our outcomes, our pitch value, let's take a look at it. So here it is, broken out, the locations broken out by count. General takeaways, and I just wanted to get out in front of this. This is just showing location. Movement, especially for breaking pitches, and velo, especially for fastballs, also very much affects these PLV values, but it's more pretty and more easily to intuitively grasp these location charts. So let's take a look. Don't hit the hitter. Very important. Those are those dark blue, especially in the hitters or early counts. Or sorry, pitchers counts, so the 2 strikes or your early counts. Those dark blue in the top right corner, those pitchers are probably going to hit a batter. We don't want those. That's not something that you want to do as a pitcher. All right, and now so if you look at 00, 01, and even a a little bit on 1-1, you have some room outside the strike zone to play with. Those are roughly kind of middle of the pack. They're likely not going to cost you too much, and you could maybe luck into a nice outcome. If you're getting a contact out there or a swing, it's probably going to benefit you, and a ball in those, or especially in those early counts, isn't too costly. And then, as Nick touched on, don't throw down the middle in even counts or hitters counts. I know, hashtag analysis, very, very novel. I'm sure you've never heard it before Nick and I talked about this. Sweet. We can even break it down the locations by the pitch groups. So we'll take a look at fastballs. They have more margin for error above the zone. That you can get a little bit better outcomes than other pitches. That high heat, you can probably get some swinging strikes. Batters can get under the ball on their swings and pop them up. So that's fastballs have a little bit more margin for those outcomes. Fastballs under the zone, they're fine at best. That generally batters aren't going to swing at them. They'll see them coming in on that nice downward plane, and they'll just let them go by. But if you can paint those bottom corners, that's your way to go. If you can paint the bottom corners, those have great outcomes, either in weak contact, swinging strikes, or called strikes. That if you can paint those, do that. Good for you. You're probably an incredible pitcher. All right, moving on to breaking balls. These are the most valuable in hitters when a pitcher is in a hitter's count. So they're behind. So 1 ball, 2 ball, 2-1, 3-1, those. So as you can see, they're much redder, especially in the zone. That's important. That if you kind of need a strike and you know you can execute that breaking ball in the zone, that's going to be your best way, or it has shown based on this model, that is your best way to get value, to either swing it closer to a pitcher's count or to get maybe a swing that the batter that's not their A swing. They're fighting something off, weak contact or high pop ball kind of thing. And there's a lot of real estate under the zone for those 2 strike counts. If you can really just have the bottom drop out at the very end, you're probably going to get a lot of swings over the top. That's great. And finally, off speed. Don't hang a middle off-speed pitch, just ever. Those are the worst, the most dangerous, the most costly. So yeah, just don't leave your slower pitches in the middle of the zone. Again, some hashtag novel analysis for you guys. And then something that was a little interesting, and it's all relative. These are kind of small, but in hitters counts, off-speed pitches have a little more wiggle room east-west, that you might be able to expand that strike zone, a batter strike zone, a little bit, or you might be able to sneak a called strike in, that there's a little bit more room side to side. And so that's something to keep in mind, that if you know you can kind of execute that really inside or outside change up, that might be another weapon for you to think about. Great. We also have, now that we have values for everybody, our first task was to build off of them. What now? We have this fun sandbox now of all of these individual pitch level values. What can we make with them? So our first thing was we wanted a general pitch classifier, and it's just quality, bad, average. 1, 2, 3, very easy, very intuitive. I have the thresholds here. So quality is over 5.5. It's about 44% of pitches. A bad pitch, less than 4.5. That's about 37. And then average between those two, 4.5 to 5.5. And that's about 20% of pitches. And we just wanted to see, okay, at a glance, who's throwing good pitches, who's throwing bad pitches. So here's just a quick little table of our top and bottom 5. Lines up very well with how my understanding of pitch. I'm not a pitch coach. I'm not nearly as well versed on scouting pitchers as someone like Nick is, but to my eye, this seems like it lines up pretty well with my understanding. Seeing Jacob deGrom in the top 5 is always validating. Great. So what we also wanted to do is we wanted to have a value that's on an ERA scale. People who like baseball know the ERA scale. Like Nick said earlier, that stat has been around for a while. That's intuitive. Everyone's heard of it. And so we wanted to put these on a scale like that makes sense. So we have our run values, as we talked about. That pitch's raw value was the sum of all of the outcomes and how they change the run value of that plate appearance. So now that we have that single pitch run value, we can combine those, and using the standard ERA formula, runs times 9 over innings pitched, we can get an ERA scaled value for their overall pitch quality. So that's great. You can see like, oh, we think his pitches, like his pitch quality is a, for someone like Sandy, it's going to be this sub-3 pitch quality. Someone like Dallas Keuchel, who's pitching a little more to contact and probably gets burned a little bit more, his is going to be over 4 PLA. That's their basically runs ERA level pitch quality value. Something cool that we've also been exploring with is, since we have individual values for each pitch type, what we can do is now try and make the same thing, an ERA scale value for each pitch type. And to do that, we use a proxy for their innings pitched. Basically, we know how many innings they pitched in a season, and we know what share of all pitches that type is. So, for example, in 2022, Sandy threw 228 and 2/3 innings and used his changeup 28% of the time. The innings pitched now, our proxy for that changeup, is 228 times 28%, or 64 innings pitched, in quotes, for his changeup. And with our PLV run estimates, that was 20.7 runs that we'd expect him to allow over all of those pitches. And so finally, it therefore has 20.7 runs times 9 over 64 innings pitched. His changeup had a PLA of a 2.61. So we think like that changeup is worth about an ERA of 2.61. We don't think that's the runs allowed because we're estimating quality of the pitch itself. There are a lot of other things like men on base that will go into those actual runs, but we think that this does a good job of getting kind of like the tools, like how good is their fastball compared to the league? How good is their slider compared to the rest of their arsenal? We think this does a good job of providing like an intuitive way to see that. We're also looking at hit luck. How many of a pitcher's hits can be attributed to luck and batter skill? I don't want to group everything. Like the difference between hits allowed and predicted hits is not just luck. Batters, I know we're pitcherless, and I know we don't really care too much about batters and hitters, but they do have a skill. Some are better than others, and some by very much and some by very little. But so we have predicted likelihoods of each hit type. That's that model that I showed you. So we have predicted outcomes for our out, single, double, triple, home run. So with those, we can see, okay, the pitcher threw these pitches, and these pitches had a predicted likelihood of being this amount of outs. So how many outs did they allow? And so then we can kind of see, okay, like the pitcher got unlucky either by the batter getting lucky or the batter being good. And I know that's something that maybe the pitcher knows beforehand, but just looking at the pitches that we have, I think it's a good idea of seeing, okay, if they're facing a league average batter and getting league average outcomes for these pitches, this is how many hits we would expect them to have allowed. And then the inverse is true of batters. We can start to analyze, okay, the pitches they saw had a likelihood of being hits. How often do they capitalize and turn those into actual hits? And that's going to be, you can do it across plate appearances, although that's kind of small, might be a little noisy, but you can do it across games, weeks, months, the season. And then that'll kind of see, okay, maybe they got a meatball on 0-0 and didn't swing. Well, that pitch has a likelihood of being a hit if they had swung on it. And so we're going to dock them that value. Or if they got, a ball kind of out of the zone, not really expected to go anywhere, and they just really turn around on it and can just bang it down the line for a double, that's going to be a hit added. Absolutely. And that's their skill. It's either their ability to control the zone, or maybe they just got lucky, fluked into it, and happened to get it. All right. And now finally, we have hitter performance. How well did that hitter perform given the quality of pitches they faced? So we have our pitch level values. We have our run expectancies. We have our outcome expectancies for every pitch. Let's apply that and give some credit to the batter. Do they take a pitch when they should? Are they swinging way outside the zone? Are they see it coming in? Oh, that's below. All right, keeping my bat on my shoulder. Great. Are they swinging at pitches that they can damage? Is it in their wheelhouse? Is it like maybe down the middle of the plate? Different batters will have different, hot spots in the zone. But as long as it's in the zone and they're not, reaching for it or really trying to like golf swing something in that bottom corner, that's going to be great. Or are they our Javier Baez's? Just swinging freely, just trying to hit whatever they can. Maybe they can do it. Good for them, but not exactly a great swing decision. When they make contact, how challenging was that pitch to hit? Was it, again, an off-speed pitch, just grooved right down the middle, just a meatball, just waiting to be swung on? Or is this a slider that really tails away from them on that bottom corner, and they just reached out and grabbed it? They were able to just put it down the line. Great, get on base, good job. That was a tough pitch, but you were able to get bat to ball, did something good with it. And then finally, if they make contact, how many bases did they add or subtract compared to the expectations of that pitch? So each pitch kind of has its own little like ISO of, we're expecting a double, a triple, a home run this amount of time, so that's X amount of extra bases that we're expecting for this. And okay, what was it? How many bases did that batter get out of it? Did he hit a double when it's expected to be a single? Did he hit a home run on a really challenging pitch that's expected to not have any bases hit out of it, really? Those are different things that now we can take a look at. Great. Now let's get into some examples of what some of these outcomes are. So this is one of our highest whiff pitches. It had a swinging strike probability of 84%. Sweet. Vlad Guerrero, great slider inside, sinker inside 96, and really just tailed in on him. All right, move on to the next one. Our unlikeliest swing. And so this helps because this is tracked as a swinging strike, but it really shouldn't be. So he's so the batter's Freddie Peralta, so that's also, not ideal. But yeah, he's just trying to get out of the way and to protect himself. Turned, technically that's a swing, but should we really give the pitcher credit for that being a swinging strike? Probably not. All right, painted corner. Let's see, if you can really get those pitches in there, get your command down, that it's worth a strike. Look at that. Just a great curveball from McClanahan. 0-0 strike, 0-0 count. Batter's probably not swinging, but he sneaks it in there, just touching that top corner. All right, and we can also do things like the meatball. What pitches are likeliest to be home runs? So let's jump into it. Kyle Schwarber versus Ryan Yarbrough. Let's see it. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's gone. Smoked it. Just hung that curveball on 2 strikes right down the middle. Yeah, that's gone. Probably one of the easier home runs Schwarber had. And then biggest miss. So this is kind of fun too. Now that we have an idea of how likely that pitch is to be a home run, we can do kind of the counterfactual. We can see, oh, well, who left the most home runs on the table, basically. All right, so let's take a look. Joey Gallo. Oh, man. 83-mile-an-hour cutter right down the middle, 2 counts. He could really match that one, but that contact ability of his really betrayed him at that point. Awesome. So that's a brief-ish overview on what our process was. Now that we have our version 1.0, we can make some extensions out of it. And this is future work that we can consider. So we can separate it into components. So we can take this process and just use those stuff features that I was talking about, your movement, your velo, and your approach angle, attack angle. We can also just do location based on where they put that pitch. How valuable is them putting that pitch there, regardless of how fast it came in, regardless really of how it got there. How valuable was that location? And I kind of talked about this before, but we can start to get into granular hitter attributes that we can aggregate. How valuable are their swing decisions? How much contact are they making over what we expect with the pitches they see? And how much power are they adding over the expectation for those pitches they see? Another interesting one, catcher framing. We have predictions for called strikes and balls. So we can see, okay, who's adding the most called strikes to the outcomes that we predict their pitchers are giving them. And another interesting one that needs probably a little more thought, but it's something cool, is a catcher's ability to call a game. Are they having their pitcher throw their best pitches? Hey, you've got a great slider. Keep throwing that great slider. Or, hey, maybe they're something's off. Their mechanics are a little weird. They just don't have the feel for their changeup that game. All right, it's all over the place. You can't locate it. All right, let's axe that and move on with your other pitches. So now that we have the values, we have a framework that we can now start to answer some of these questions. And now this is PLV 1.0. This is our inaugural launch. This is our first cut at it. We're very proud of it, but we already have ideas for how it can be better and cooler things we can do with it. So for PLV 2 and beyond, we can add more features, more spin information. There's a lot of good stuff on seam shifted wake, especially once we get that granular spin information. Now we can see, okay, how is their break compared to what we would expect that break to be? That's their seam shifted wake. We can take a look at tunneling. How much do their pitches break at a certain point when a batter makes that decision? Maybe if the pitches break a ton after a batter has decided to swing, that's going to be much more valuable than pitches that kind of just look the same and end up in the same, or are a big tell, that big sweeping curveball that's going up versus a fastball going straight. Arm slot estimation. There's some cool work on trying to basically classify, is he throwing over the top, 3/4 delivery, submarine. Those are always fun. And so different movement profiles might have different values depending on where that arm is, where their arm is. That batters may be expecting one thing versus another. Sequencing, that's a big one. Right now, we're just looking at this pitch was thrown right now. What's that? We're not really comparing to, okay, well, he threw him an inside fastball before. Now let's throw him an outside and down curve. We're not looking at that, but that's something that we can definitely look into that should, in theory, have some helpful value to that. Using more of the pitch mix. So, like I said, we're using that primary pitch, that fastball, your four seam sinker, cutter, that's basically what we're deriving differences from. But maybe we can start to do a more holistic of, okay, this is how good their arsenal is. And so this pitch based on their arsenal has more or less value than we'd expect. And then last but not least, looking into spray angle predictions. Like I said, that, if a ball's hit 310 feet, if that's down a line, might be probably a home run. If it's dead center, it's probably just going to be a real deep out. And so if we can have something in there that's useful and predictive, that can also vastly improve our predictions. And especially it's something like our ball in play, which kind of have the largest margin for error right now. Awesome. I really appreciate all of y'all sticking through this with me. I hope I made a lot of sense. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me on Twitter. I'm at Blandalytics. I'm also on Mastodon at Blandalytics at scrimmage.com. Yeah, feel free to reach out. We're so excited at PLV, what it brings to the site, what it brings to our analysis, and incorporating it into what we do going forward. We have all this information, and now we can really start to use it to inform how we see the art and science of pitching and the art and science of hitting. So thanks again. Have a great rest of your day. PitchCon's going to be awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right, Kyle, thank you so much for taking the time with us. And we are going to have a Q&A at the end. I don't know if Kyle's going to be able to be there because, of course, he has this new baby and everything. But Kyle, I can't thank you enough for sharing everything about PLV.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm so excited. I'm so happy you're a part of this. It's been amazing working with you since you joined the team in the middle of the summer. And yeah, we can't wait to share everything to everybody and continue to work on this together. So we have a lot more to go through. But Kyle, thanks so much for joining us today.
Shout out RotoWare, process over results shirt. This has been my mantra this whole time. So I really appreciate that. I got to get my PitchCon shirt, but I figure I'll do the one that's been truest to my process so far.
Fantastic. All right. Take care, Kyle.
Later, y'all.